So today we're going to meet with Rick. Rick is somebody I actually just stumbled across on YouTube. For those of you who don't know, I have developed a real interest and passion for photography, videography, stuff like that. So you tend to kind of follow people in the photography world. And Rick came up in my suggestion feed on YouTube. So I clicked the button and I started to watch his videos. And I noticed that there was a consistent theme there. He came across like a guy who was obviously very passionate about what he does. I think his authenticity I was quite struck by, and his ability to engage was really quite impressive also. I think what I liked most about him when I watched it was that you just felt that he was a guy that wasn't going to judge you. I know very little about photography. I would love to know more. And he's probably the kind of go-to guy if you were, wanting to ask someone who has obviously an extensive knowledge of photography, that he's not going to bark at you and chase you. He's that kind of guy that I think would welcome your questions, regardless how silly they are. So I watched a few more episodes and then I just wondered, there was something that made me think, could this guy be ADHD? Because I think a lot of photographers are, because we see tons of them. And so I messaged him. I'm not going to say any more because we'll talk about it more in the video. And it was an interesting catch up. So let's go meet Rick and see how that goes.
Nice to see you again, Rick. Thanks for jumping on to the channel. I was just thinking about how we met, first of all. We see tons of people in the arts industry, lots of photographers, videographers, and I think just that type of work lends itself well to the world of neurodiversity. And before we jumped on, I made a wee intro there, talking about how I was watching one of your videos, like I do with a lot of people, because between you and me, I've become a bit obsessed with the camera world over the last 2 or 3 years. Learned a wee bit about it. Still probably pretty clueless, but I follow people. And you were one of these folk who came up on my YouTube feed. I thought, I'm going to listen to this guy. And I remember watching a couple of videos and I wondered if this guy's got ADHD. And then I thought, message him. No, don't message him. Message him. No, don't. And I thought, well, do you know what? I'm just going to message you. And that was the bizarre thing, because you then come back to me, which most people don't. You then come back to me and you said, well, that's funny because I've not long been diagnosed. And so we'll get into that. Shortly, but I just wanted to because I want to pick your brains about photography also. And I wondered how you get into that in the first place.
Not in a typical way, I'd say. So talking about photography particularly, my dad, who unfortunately passed away when I was 14, I just remember him with a camera in his hand all the time when I was a kid. He had an old Canon film camera, and he also had a camcorder. So he was literally like photographing or filming anything and everything all the time. So I think I got a camera for like my 5th birthday, just a little square format film camera, and I kind of followed his example really, and I took loads of photos as a kid, and that actually carried on into my teens as well. But after he passed away and kind of dealing with the aftermath of that and everything else, hobbies and habits and everything else changed a bit, and photography kind of fell along with a load of other things. I was always really creative at school, particularly in primary school, where back in the 90s you're allowed to be creative, not so much in high school. And I just used to love like drawing, writing, doing anything creative really. In high school, I was never like an art fan, and that was the only real thing as an option for doing those kind of design technology and stuff like that. But there wasn't anything available at my school in kind of filmmaking or photography or anything like that, and they were the things I was most interested in, I suppose. Until sixth form, and in sixth form, I did very science-based subjects. I did chemistry, I did computer science, I did maths, all of which I disliked quite a lot. I was always quite bright at school, but as I got further through school, stuff got more difficult, and I actually had to do some work, and I didn't enjoy that very much. So my favourite thing I did at school was, whilst I was supposed to be doing these 3 A-levels, I actually did a GCSE in media studies, and basically got to run around with a camcorder for a few weeks, and I absolutely loved it. And I think I got an A in that without it really feeling like I was doing any work. But my mum she was very science-based, and it was kind of put into me, I suppose, that that's the path you should take. And being a 17-year-old with unfortunately no father figure at the time, I listened to my mum and ended up going to university to do computer science, and I hated it. And since my diagnosis, I can now understand so many of the things I did at university. No, I didn't finish the program because I didn't enjoy going to lectures. And apparently going to lectures is important if you want to learn the stuff that you need to pass the exams. So I passed my first year, though.
It's funny you should say that, because I did an assessment of someone quite recently who got a distinction in their masters. I can't remember what it was. It was psychology.
Okay.
I said, that's amazing. And she said, I'll let you into a secret. I said, what's that? She said, the only reason I passed my masters, let alone get a distinction, was because, I went, yeah, because I never went to one lecture. She was convinced had she gone to the lectures, she would not have been able to process anything and would have just thought.
Oh, no way.
And so I asked her, how did you do it? She said, well, I did a bit of YouTubing, and I found that generated my interest. Once it generated enough, then that allowed me to then go off and do a bit more serious reading. But she didn't go to any lectures because she knew immediately she would zone out.
Okay. That's interesting. Unfortunately, I didn't do anything outside of lectures either. So I think basically I didn't enjoy it. I found it boring, but it was kind of put into us back in the 90s, like, you go to university. I literally didn't know what else to do. I was like, I'm pretty good with computers. I just didn't have a clue what else to do. So that's what I went to do. And I realised towards the end of my second year, I wasn't going to pass it. So I dropped out, which inevitably upset some people. But I was like, no, I'll go back and I'll resit the year and I'll get my head down and I'll do it. And 4 months later, I pulled out again for good that time and moved back home. Got a job in an office working for an insurance company. And there was still this like voice from the family of, you should go to university, you should get a degree. And I just didn't really know what to do. So I saw careers advisors, did various tests and everything else, and ended up going and doing a degree in planning and property development. And that had elements of design in it, scheme design, architecture, stuff like that, which I really enjoyed. And I managed to complete that degree. Unfortunately, my mum passed away when I was in my final year at university. And I just felt like dropping it and not bothering because my heart wasn't in it, but I knew she'd have wanted me to finish. So I went back and I got my degree, and this was 2008. And I don't know if anyone remembers what happened in 2008, but there weren't many jobs in property around.
No, there was a bit of a crash, I believe, back then.
There was quite a large crash, and graduates weren't option number one when it came to the few remaining jobs that were available in property. So I was kind of floundering in the job market for a number of years. And outside of my career, I was struggling a lot with my mental health as well. understandably, because I'd lost both my parents, and I'd never really discussed it with anyone. Everything was just kept
What age were
aside.
you? Did you find yourself like, on your own? You know, without
It's kind of it was complicated, I'd say. After my dad passed away, my mum had a difficult kind of teenage period herself,
Yes.
in kind of losing parents and stuff, and I don't think she really knew how to deal with it. So there wasn't much of a conversation that went on at home when I was a teenager about my dad passing away. And I think I just kind of got the message from that of, this just isn't something we talk about. I think I didn't want to upset her. She didn't want to upset me. And that's just how we went with it. So it kind of went unmentioned for a long time. And I probably put the same learnings into place when my mum passed away. So I was 24 when she died, and yeah, just kept it all inside. Developed quite a reliance on alcohol to kind of quieten my brain and feel a bit happier, although that didn't work too well at times. And then eventually got to about the age of 30, trying to do different jobs, leaving jobs because I was having kind of a lot of difficulties with them, just didn't enjoy them. Found myself having sort of panic attacks about going to work, really bad anxiety, not sleeping, all sorts of stuff like that. And I started to, at that point, get some counselling for it, and you kind of have 6 counselling sessions, and you think, oh, that's okay, I've done it now, I've sorted it, I'm fine.
That's interesting, because one of the things that I've not spoken to you about this before, but I speak to a lot of people that I see about grief and loss, and my experience of working with folk with ADHD where they experience grief and loss is that it's a much more protracted situation than it might be for neurotypical people. And it always reminds me of someone that I see, a patient who her mum died, and she has 3 siblings, and in their eyes, she seemed to have moved on fairly quickly from their mum dying. And at one point, one of her siblings asked her, like, you don't seem to be too bothered about mum's death. Why is that? And she said, no, I am. And she explained to me that because of her ADHD, and this might sound a bit cold, but it was never intentional. She says, I sometimes forgot about mum. I sometimes forgot she wasn't here. And what happened to her was that it was like 18 months, 2 years down the line, her siblings had gone through whatever that process is and were at a very different stage to what she was at. She would find that, several years later, she'd still be driving down the road in a car, and then suddenly remember the loss of her mum, would go into floods of tears and pull over to the side of the road where she would have to sit there for about an hour just to, calm herself down again. And I just wondered, was that anything like that around for you?
Yeah, I suppose it probably was a little bit. It's hard to remember because it was a while ago now, but I think I probably did come across as if I was fine and I dealt with it, and no one really had any concerns about me, I don't think. Certainly no one raised any anyway. And like kind of late 90s, early 2000s, there was a huge drinking culture anyway in the UK. So what I was doing probably didn't seem all that different to what anyone was doing in that regard.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, in all honesty.
I suppose that the alcohol side of things, whether it's alcohol, cannabis, in the world of ADHD, that will actually cocoon you from all those external pressures very quickly. Obviously, the problem with that is that you keep going back to that well because it keeps delivering, and then there's a price to pay for that, because the things you take it for actually then become worse, and you realize that this isn't helping. Yeah,
and that's kind of exactly what happened, really. I suppose probably peaked at around the age of 30ish, I'd say, when I started kind of getting counselling and stuff like that. But you asked me about how I got into photography, and I need to kind of interject with that phase. So when I was after I finished university, finally, That was a very long-standing joke among my friends that I now understand the reason for. But my gran was kind enough to give me a gift of, I think it was about £500. And I thought, you know what, I'd really like to buy a nice camera. And I bought a Canon, like my dad had, for no other reason that I thought this would be a nice thing to spend that money on. Yeah. And very quickly found myself taking lots of pictures, lots of the time. And it kind of happened at a time where YouTube wasn't really a thing then. So everything I was learning was out of books and magazines and stuff like that. And I remember probably 2 or 3 years later, someone said to me, "Oh, I think I posted something on Facebook." Someone said, "Oh, that's quite good. You can maybe make money out of this." And that just set a light bulb off in my head. And then I started doing little freelance gigs. I started doing portrait sessions and weddings and things like that. And it just sort of snowballed from there, really.
Did you do any formal training in photography?
I did no formal training whatsoever. I literally picked up everything from the internet and from books and magazines. I did one course that I paid for. Actually, my wife paid for it for me as a birthday present, which was it was a course in doing flash photography at weddings with a pretty well-renowned photographer in the Northwest. Right. And that I learned a lot from that, but just in terms of technique. But other than that, I just kind of worked it out.
I suppose that's a bit like that psychology student that if she didn't go to lectures, she worked out her own way of doing it. You're probably the same.
Yeah, I'm not convinced if someone was telling me how to do it, I'd have listened.
I think you're probably right about that. But that's when you were talking there earlier about school and stuff, it does make me think that neurodiverse folk are not best suited to how the school curriculum's taught, because it trying to process that stuff is very difficult. And it just goes to show you that if you give somebody their own space to find their own way that works for them, then they can process it fine.
I think so, yeah. As long as they are trying to access something that they're interested in.
Oh,
it's computer science, and you've got, that too.
Excellent. So that's how it started. And did like, obviously a lot has changed between then and now. Did you think for 1 minute it was going to get to the level that it's at?
No, I mean, I didn't really know what level it would get to. I think it was probably, let me think timeline wise, it was probably about 2013, 14-ish, I'd say. That I was just like, right, I was getting more and more work. I was like, okay, I can actually be a photographer here. That I can make this my career, which is what I wanted to do because I loved it and I absolutely hated working in an office environment that gave me kind of freedom and autonomy, and I was doing something I enjoyed. And at that point, I was mainly shooting weddings at weekends, and I was working as well worked in facilities management at the time. And then around about 2015, a whole lot of stuff changed. So my wife fell pregnant with our eldest, and that meant I all of a sudden didn't want to be doing weddings as much because most people get married on a weekend, and
that's right.
Kind of wanted to spend that time with the family. But also in my job, I worked for a large national pet retailer. Take your guess at who that is. And they wanted to put a photo studio in at the time, and I worked in head office just around the corner from where I live. And I'd done bits of photography stuff for them. I'd kind of done time lapses of new stores being built, so they knew what I could do. And they also knew I was kind of trying to pursue this career in photography. And I was fortunate enough to get the job as their kind of studio manager. Totally blank slate, suited me down to the ground. It was just been basically, we want this, get on with it. And I was just kind of left to do it in the way that I saw fit. And I was there for 4 years. Just started doing photography of products, but then I started introducing more lifestyle stuff. I taught myself how to do video whilst in that job, and then I kind of brought video production as a capability to the studio as well. So we started filming website content, social media content, advertising stuff. So kind of took it from just product photos in a white background in a tiny room to a much bigger studio space with multiple people. And yeah.
See, I'm just wondering, because you trigger something there when you were talking about having that job in that pet store.
Yeah.
Whichever one it might be. And did that kind of safety net, if you like, of having a job give you the freedom to learn your craft more easily? Because I see a lot of folk who struggle with the concept of, drawing a very clear line in the sand where they go, right, I'm leaving employment and I'm going to do my own thing. And they would often find that really overwhelming. Because I did it as well with what I'm doing. I still worked in a health system that you might know. And then I left that, having done a bit on my own, but I was still there at the same time. I was wondering, did that help, having that job?
Yeah, I mean, it helped massively. They were great to me because when I worked in the facilities team, they knew what I wanted to do. They knew I didn't necessarily want to be there doing that job. And as I got busier with freelance work, they basically allowed me to change my job and go down to 3 days a week, so that I had 2 days a week to allocate towards freelance photography stuff. So they were really understanding that way. And then when this studio job came up, I was as long as I got through all of the stuff I got through, I could also kind of learn everything I wanted to learn along the way. And that was in sort of more of the advent of being able to learn from YouTube and stuff as well. So, I mean, everything I was doing in terms of gaining knowledge and experience was paid back to the company in terms of what we could produce. And I think without that, it probably would have taken a lot longer to get to where I did. If I was just doing a standard office job, the transition period would definitely have been longer. And I think that's one of the things when you decide you want to do something different. I think it's quite hard to be patient because you just want to get started straight away. But it's unfortunately not that easy. I mean, even for me with kind of that transition period, it still took years.
Oh, and I've only met you a couple of times. I've probably said this several times. Too much too soon in the world of ADHD is too much. And I think if you can make those incremental steps that you describe, then by the time you reach, midway point in that journey, well, I can actually do this. This is fine. Whereas if I 5 years ago, if I said to you 10 years ago, Rick, here's where you're going to be tomorrow, and this is going to be your career, and you would have run a mile.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I'd have been completely clueless. And I mean, I look at what I'm doing now, and it's completely different to what I was doing there. When I left there, that was, when was it? 2019, spring 2019. That's when I started working for myself. So I was just like, I've kind of burnt out on the office environment, and it's like what we said before we had this call. It's like sometimes you just feel like you want to be on your own a bit.
Yeah.
And that's how it was. I was like, right, I just want to do something where I've not got people bothering me, basically. Obviously, still didn't know I had ADHD at this time, so it wasn't even a consideration. And that was, I'd always wanted to work for myself, I think, but I think wanting to be on my own was a big driving factor. So I knew I wasn't going to be on my own all the time. I basically set myself up as someone doing corporate video because I wanted to move a little bit away from photography to basically give myself the space for photography to become my hobby again rather than my job. Because over that 4 years, I don't know how many thousands of pet-related products I'd photographed, and I just felt a bit burnt out on it, to be honest. So I kind of built up this video side of my business across that year. Then, I mean, I don't do any of that now. I don't do any freelance video now. 6 years later, it's completely changed. And
You got all this spare time though, surely.
I wish. One of my first clients was a landscape photographer that, given your interest in photography now, that you might have seen Nigel Danson. Okay. Well, he lives near me, and basically, as I left my job, he was advertising for an editor.
Right.
I knew who he was. I'd met him up a hill randomly in the Lake District, and I suddenly had time to fill and a kind of passion for wanting to pursue this video career. So I started working for him as an editor, and he's just hit 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. I think he was on 100 and something thousand when I started working for him.
It's just behind you.
One day, maybe. No. But he, working with him kind of opened up my eyes to the opportunity of potentially doing content creation on YouTube.
Yeah.
And seeing kind of what he was doing with it, I was just like, that looks like something that's really fun, something that's good, something that's you kind of got an awful lot of control over.
Yeah.
But you've got to be willing to put yourself out there. And it took a while for that side of me to catch up with the desire side, I suppose.
How did you find a way to marry those two?
There was an element of just doing something and putting it out there. I think my main issue, certainly in the early days of it, I think I put my first video out in 2019. And then over the next...
That's not that long ago. That's not that long ago.
It's not. But the one thing they say, if you want to be successful on YouTube or grow at all, is consistency.
Yeah.
And I just could not find that consistency at all. And I think a lot of that was just down to I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to make videos, but I didn't know who they were for or what the videos were going to contain. And I had an awful lot of self-doubt, I suppose, wrapped up in my own work. I didn't believe it was good enough. I suppose I didn't believe that I had anything of value to say to people. And I guess a lot of that was because, in truth, I was still struggling so much in my own life.
Yeah. And now, how does that feel when you're thinking about being, maybe not good enough or having that expertise? Are those doubts still there? The imposter syndrome, or that sense of overwhelm that is never too far away, or has that shifted somewhat?
At times, but it is so much different to how it was. So I struggled quite a lot in COVID with lockdown and everything else, because I just built my business up to a decent place. And then it all disappeared literally overnight. We had a year previous had our second kid. So we had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Right.
And my wife had just gone back to work after maternity leave. She didn't get furloughed. And all of a sudden I was going from doing something I wanted to do for years to I'm a stay-at-home dad with 2 boys whose ages aren't close enough to each other for them to want to do the same thing.
Yes.
And I look back on it now, it was an incredibly difficult period for me.
Yeah.
And I think I'd struggled to kind of recover after that. And I just remember my wife saying to me one day, I don't know what's going on with you. You don't talk to me. You don't tell me what's up. And I'm not sure I knew myself. I wasn't kind of doing the things that deep down I wanted to do. I didn't know why. And I just wasn't in a great place. So I was just like, right, I need to sort this out. And I was already into kind of self-development and whatever else anyway, but that kind of kicked it up to a new level. And I saw a number of therapists in the years following that. Some worked, some didn't. But I kind of developed this thought that the reason I had these kind of issues with perfectionism, imposter syndrome, lack of focus, just an inability to do the things that I wanted to do, I thought, right, it's because I've still not properly dealt with the fact I lost my parents when I did. So that was my reason for going into it. And that process completely changed me as a person.
In a good way?
In a really good way. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of open about everything and anything now. I know the value of talking about things, not just kind of to friends, but just openly in conversations like this, in some of the videos I've put on YouTube. It's been really, really helpful, and it's really built my confidence as well. All these things kind of wrapped up together. The problem was I'd kind of fixed all that side of me. It's like I can't talk about anything else to do with my parents. It wasn't just kind of to do with them passing away. It was kind of family dynamics, as well as younger expectation and all of that kind of stuff.
Did you spend like years? Because a lot of people with ADHD do this, where they're looking for answers and solutions to try to find what is at the bottom of this. And maybe when you did the counselling, as you've said, that you think, right, okay, that's that, I've nailed it, and I should be fine now. What happened then?
Exactly. That was exactly my thought process. It was like, right, I've done everything I can do. I'm fixed. Here we go. And I sit at my desk and I'd just do exactly the same things I was doing before. So I'd sit here and I knew what I was supposed to be doing, but I'd be kind of just, I don't know, distracting myself with this, that, and the other. And I get to the end of the day, I was like, well, what have I actually done today? Why? Like, I basically was just constantly self-sabotaging. Like, I've got this kind of plan of growing my YouTube channel and building a business like that, but I'm not actively doing it. And as kind of time went on, I could force myself to do it, but it was difficult, and everything was up to deadline and whatever else. And that kind of led to the diagnosis this year. I had wondered previously, I think it was back in 2021, I think I'd heard a podcast or something, and it resonated quite a lot with me. And I had wondered, maybe this is ADHD. And I spoke to my doctor, and they put me forward for a referral. I can't remember via what means it was now, but I remember getting a phone call off a nurse, and she asked me some questions for about 20 minutes, and then just said, "No, I don't think you've got ADHD." So that's that, basically. So it's fine. And I kind of forgot about it.
What was the reason?
I honestly can't remember. I genuinely can't remember what the reasons were. I think I just thought, I was like, okay, well, that's not what needs fixing. I must need to work on other stuff, because if she says I've not got it, then fine.
Yeah. The ADHD is like one of these things. Like, if you go to the doctor and you say, I've got these symptoms, and they go, okay, let's have a look at that. Let's investigate that. With ADHD, it almost feels like, let's do everything we can to make sure it's not that. Like, it must be this, it must be that. It could be your anxiety, your depression. You're actually fine. You're intelligent. You've done a degree, and so, oh well, it can't be ADHD then. And you then go off, and most people probably, that's the end of it, and they'll never revisit this question again. So obviously you didn't take it at face value, and you did something else.
Well, I mean, I did take it at face value for 4 years, near enough. And it was 4 more years of kind of semi-regular therapy, to be left in not the same position, because the therapy did completely change me, no doubt about it, but just some of the same struggles going on that I kind of thought were linked to the loss of my parents, like I said. The fact that these were still going on, I was just like, well, what else could it possibly be? And I can't remember how exactly I came to considering ADHD. Oh, that's it. I said in my video this week, it's just completely slipped my mind. I made a video about 8 months ago about procrastination. which is easily one of my biggest struggles.
Yeah.
And about 4 or 5 people replied in the comments to that, all saying, that sounds a bit like ADHD, or I've got ADHD and do very similar things. And I was just like, okay, that's interesting. But a friend of mine, probably about a week after that, posted on Instagram saying that him, photographer as well, they'd just been diagnosed with ADHD. So I started asking him questions and then started reading a bit more about it, doing a few online tests. Everything just started pointing towards it. I got a couple of books out. Everything made sense from them with regard to it. So I think it was back in April, May time, I spoke to my GP again. So I thought, this is kind of still going on. It's probably on record that I spoke to you before, but I honestly think now that this is highly likely. And they put me through for assessment via Right to Choose.
Very good.
And I got my 2 assessments were in September. So following the second one, it's like, yeah, you've got combined ADHD. And it was just like penny drop moment, really.
Did you believe them?
No. I did. Sorry, no. That's a lie, actually. I did believe them, but I thought somehow I've conned them into believing that I've got it.
So ADHD. Honestly, I see people like, by the way, you've got ADHD. And I'll say it again, just to reiterate, you definitely have ADHD. Because I know if I don't say it 3 or 4 times, by the time they get up the road, they've convinced themselves they don't have it. Because I wasn't convincing. So you might have been the same.
Yeah. I heard it. I think I actually cried when he told me, because it was just like, shit, this is finally the answer. But then it was in the kind of aftermath of that it was just like, I've somehow just given the answers that they want to hear to be able to give me this diagnosis. And I felt like I'd almost conned them into diagnosing me. That probably went on for about 5 weeks before. I've done more even on it since. And they say it's like the 7 stages of grief when you get a diagnosis, isn't it? And that's clearly the denial stage.
Yeah. But there are multiple stages. That there's often a sense of relief. And, so I'm not a lazy bastard. I'm not, whatever it is, whatever that narrative is, well, that actually I was wrong about that. But then there's often the what if questions, which can be tricky. Did you have any of them? What if this was picked up before?
No.
Good.
A little bit, but although I've got these frustrations that have been ongoing for as long as I remember, I am not just happy, but I'm genuinely grateful for where I am in terms of what I do at the moment. What I do is incredible. Because of what I do, I got to go to Antarctica last year. It's insane. If you told me 10 years ago that would be happening, I just would not have believed you. And it's because of that path that I've gone down that I am where I am now. And if anything had been any different, who knows how different my life would be now. So
not your
I believe
holiday.
No, it's not really. So I kind of believe it came to me at the right time.
Yeah.
As weird as that might sound.
I think when things turn out all right, sometimes you look at the ADHD and think, well, I'd rather not have it, but possibly if I didn't have ADHD, I might not be where I am now.
Yeah.
Is that the same for you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because I'd have stuck it out at university and I'd have found myself doing, I don't know what.
Yeah.
I didn't have it.
So that's a fascinating journey to this point. And then obviously your career as it currently is, you are a content creator on YouTube, which is where I found you. Because as you said earlier, my interest in photography. I think in the world of ADHD, it's very interesting. We speak to any adult with ADHD, and when they tell you about it, someone's calling me. When they tell you about it, how they first get into it, they describe a very clear picture of, maybe a conversation with someone, or they watched something, or they read something, and then that little light bulb come on in their head. And then like every other light bulb before where they develop an interest in something, it's now lit up their brain like the 4th of July, and they go and research it to the nth degree. You were said it bought books on it, and you know not. And then I think once you realize, gee, this is possibly ADHD, it then becomes really urgent that I get this sorted.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think, I don't know how many books I've read on it. Some of them are there. I think I've read about 5 books on it already.
Well, how many books have you bought and how many books have you read?
You know what? I've read them all.
Have you?
I have read them all. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
reading, for whatever reason, is something that I don't struggle with, depending on the book. I have a lot of unfinished books, but I can finish books, thankfully, quite.
Again, that's a myth about ADHD that, if you can read books, you can't have ADHD. No, if you're...
Well, that's why I think that's what probably gave me doubts years ago. So I read loads of books.
No, I get patients that their passion is playing chess. And so, yeah, well, the default position there, well, you can't have ADHD if you can play chess. But and so people, again, it's that idea we rule out something rather than assess it properly. So your YouTube channel, it's just your name, I believe.
It's just my name. It's just Rick Bebbington. It's kind of a photography channel. Well, it is a photography channel, but not in the kind of teaching people photography sense.
Tell us a bit more about it.
My main aim with it is basically I want people to embrace more of a creative life. I found so much joy and fulfillment through creativity, and it was something that I was steered away from. Yeah. And I think if I'd remained steered away from it, I don't know what my life would be like now. I think it's something that's certainly, like I said before, it's kind of taught out of us a bit at school, but it's available to everyone. And photography, I mean, yes, it can be very expensive, as you know, but it also is a very accessible thing to kind of put your mind to. I mean, pretty much everyone's got a camera in their phone who has a phone, so that can be a gateway into it. You don't necessarily need an expensive camera, although you will end up with one if it's something you follow.
Not me, of course, because I would never. Not you, But I think that's such an important point you make there, and I think we touched on this before off camera, where if you're thinking about photography, and obviously I'm not speaking to Rick now, I'm speaking to you guys watching this. If you're interested in photography, then, you know, as Rick says, use your phone, go out and take some photographs. That your phone and your camera tells the same story, and if you get into it and you love it, take some more on your phone, and eventually then you might buy a camera. But don't do what someone else I know did. What was it? Me, obviously. You go out and buy the biggest, best camera, and actually don't even know how to turn it on. Can't remember that person's name. Anyway, what were you saying? Right?
He won't be the first or last person to do that. But I think as well, I also realise now, following the diagnosis, that I think photography was just a really good way of actually turning my brain off for a bit. Just actually being able to be present in the world and aware of what's going on. And I've only recently made that connection, obviously, but I've spoke to other photographers who have ADHD, and they kind of describe a really similar experience.
Well, obviously I'm a real kind of novice amateur to this, but when I go out and I'm doing some photography, it's just me. I love just being me on my own with the scenery. But then I would lose myself in that, what you would call a composition, where I can see the photograph. And once I've taken it, I will spend an age just like pouring my whole self into that scene. Is that
right?
I think
this. I've had this conversation with some clients recently, because I do kind of creative coaching as well.
Yeah.
And I think there seems to be two different sorts of creative brain. Yeah. It's almost like a left brain, right brain kind of thing. And from the people I spoke to, and from myself, and as well, there's seemingly two types of people. This might not be correct, but this is how I've understood it.
Be correct.
And there's and and there's those that kind of are quite reactive and can sort of see something and see that makes a good photo, and they can take a photo of it without really thinking about it. But then there's the other type of people that think about these things really kind of logically, I suppose, and they kind of analyze the scene and make little adjustments and are maybe kind of patient around light changing and stuff like that. And it seems that you kind of fit into one camp or another, and I'm very much the kind of reactive, impatient camp.
I probably should be that kind, because I would just then take a photograph and it would probably turn out all right, and then I'm trying to be a bit too fanciful, and then I'll take it and then get it up the road and I go, oh, that's terrible.
Do you know, I think there is, well, there can be a danger, certainly with trying to learn from YouTube and stuff like that, is that if you kind of base your learnings around a narrow range of creators, you take on a lot of the ways that they work, and those ways might not necessarily be compatible with you. And I think this potentially helped me back in my photography for quite a long time, because you pick up these rules and these ways of doing things. And for a long time, I only shot landscapes outside of kind of weddings and everything else. So as a hobby, I only shot landscapes. And you say, well, you can't do landscape photography unless you're there an hour before and an hour after sunrise. You just can't do it outside of those times. They call them blue hour and golden hour. And you can't do it in certain weather conditions and stuff like that. So I kind of took all this on and just thought, right, that's when I can do it. And then all of a sudden you got a kid, and those times aren't actually all that accessible. So you find that you're never really actually taking any photos. And it did take me a while to release myself from those sort of limiting beliefs, I suppose. And now I'm quite happy really pointing my camera at anything and everything. I've started projects this year photographing bus stops in fun locations or traffic cones and all sorts of random stuff like that a lot of people, I'm sure, look at and go, what on earth are you doing? But I enjoy it, and I say that is the main thing that you should look for from it. It's about your own enjoyment. Photography should be done for you primarily and not for anyone else, which again is kind of a danger of social media in this day and age, trying to kind of impress other people and all that. And I probably did that for a while as well. Everyone, I think.
But I think regardless of what the photograph is, it was you that took it, and it was you that was there in that moment, and you've kind of captured that moment, and it could be there forever. I saw your photographs of the bus stops. I was wondering, is Rick hoping that a bus will turn up at some point, and he's just trying to make the point, and there's never any buses?
There's no, I don't want that. I'm not interested in the buses. It's kind of, I mean, most of them were taken in the Faroe Islands and the Isle of Lewis and Harris and the Outer Hebrides, where I was earlier this year. And it's these like remote, beautiful places, and then just finding this little bus shelter there. And I never saw anyone waiting for a bus the whole time I was in either place. I think I saw one bus potentially, but it's just kind of showing, I suppose, something we see generally on a day-to-day basis, but just in a totally different place, I think.
So do you just like wake up in the morning and go, it's 8 o'clock, I'm off to the Faroe Islands, I'll be back in a couple of days? How do you...
No, unfortunately not. So I think the Faroe Islands was, I was there with Nigel, who I mentioned earlier. I was actually working on a video project with him there. So that's the reason I was there. And then we just had time to do a bit of kind of exploring in photography as well. The trip to the Outer Hebrides, again, I was with Nigel and a couple of other friends as well, but that was just more of a shooting trip. And I'm quite lucky now that, given what I do, I can say, well, I can make videos while I'm there, and they will go onto the channel, and I can kind of indulge my photographic desires as well, I suppose. And photography is, to me, over the last few years, been something that I need to do almost. And if I don't do it, I get pretty cranky, and I'm just not myself. And I'm feeling it at the moment because I love where I live, but all the leaves are gone now. It's grey and rainy seemingly all of the time. And despite wanting to go and take photos, I'm just I don't know. I'm looking out the window now. I don't know what I'd go and take photos of. And I feel like every so often I need one of these trips to kind of reinvigorate me, I suppose.
Is that a change of season thing that, not just because the leaves aren't there? Often people with ADHD will struggle when we move into the winter times. Is that similar for you?
I have certainly noticed that over the last few years. Yeah. I didn't used to notice it so much. Again, it's probably worth mentioning this. Actually, I noticed all of my symptoms of ADHD got worse when I started working for myself, and progressively worse over that time. And I'd say that's probably because I'd removed myself from the kind of container of routine that is imposed on you from working within a company.
Yeah.
And the more I kind of, like when I first started working for myself, I was still in that 9 to 5 mindset. So I'd be pretty good at doing it as and when I did it. But the longer I did it, I realized it didn't really suit me. And then you kind of release that a little bit. And then symptoms got worse because I didn't have that routine and that schedule. And what was the question?
I can't remember. But I was already thinking of the next question.
It was the seasonal change. Seasonal change. So I think certainly the last 3 years, I've noticed it to be worse than any other year I can remember.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of similarities where we see young people who've got that scaffold of the home front where they're living at home. They've got their parents who, or as I said to a teenage girl the other day when she was describing her home, and I said, so you live in an all-inclusive and our parents kind of roll their eyes where everything's kind of done for them. Not that I'm saying that's for you, but when you don't develop life skills because it takes forever to learn them when you've got ADHD and you get parents to do stuff for you, and then you leave the house for the first time, you're there on your own. And I think there's probably similarities there when you're working for someone and you've got that scaffold where you don't have to think of everything, you just go and do your job. To then, I've got the idea of my business, this would be amazing. And then you go and do it, and suddenly it's you for everything. And obviously you're the sort of imposter syndrome, any negative narrative, you being your biggest critic, all these things are there at the same time.
Yeah. And I think going down this content creator route has probably amplified them as well. When I was doing work in a freelance capacity, I was still working for people.
Yes.
They gave me deadlines. I had things that were imposed on me through them. They were just all a bit more compartmentalized. Whereas now, like, it's all me, I suppose. There are some deadlines with kind of sponsors and stuff like that, and they normally get met the day before. But it's very kind of different and requires, I'd say, an enormous amount of self-motivation, which can be hard at times, really hard.
Of course. But I think the proof is in the pudding. I always say that to people. Look for the evidence. If things are terrible and that's as evidence to show that, then that's understandable. You might feel a certain way. But if you think things are terrible and the evidence says the opposite, you're probably doing something right. And I think you just need to get more experience behind you. And then if you look back, you've actually done quite a lot, which is where you're at right now. And when we spoke before, I was really excited to hear about some of your ideas around, your expertise in photography, your increasing understanding of neurodiversity, and, all the sort of learnings along the way, and how you're sort of maybe moving forward, bringing those ideas together. And you touched on it earlier about offering some coaching. What are your plans around that stuff?
So I kind of started testing the waters this year with offering one-on-one coaching for basically people that wanted a more creative life but felt stuck, essentially. Didn't know what direction to take it or had issues with self-doubt and self-confidence and various other things. And some of them were retired and just wanted kind of a more fulfilling retirement, and others want to turn it into a bit of a business themselves. And I kind of feel like, I mean, I put a video out a couple of days ago saying I feel like a bit of a fraud because I've not had all of this stuff completely sorted out myself yet. I'm speaking to other people about it quite a lot, but I kind of know the things that need approaching to be able to work through that. I've worked through it myself. I've done the exercises. I understand so much about all of those things, and therefore I have been able to help people work through these things themselves. And everyone I've worked with on an individual basis this year has really valued what I've done with them. And I'm not just saying that they have entered information into a feedback form. Was I surprised? No, I wasn't surprised, because it's kind of an extension of some of the stuff I've spoken about on YouTube that I know has helped people. I was maybe surprised at the level of success in terms of how happy people were. I mean, they just said the nicest things about it. And I suppose there was an element of self-doubt in my ability to deliver that. I've got no training as a coach. I've never been coached. I'm just kind of making it up. But I think with my level of self-understanding and empathy that's been built up through my experiences over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years, however long, I feel like I've been through a lot and I've done a lot, and that gives me a foundation to be able to approach it with people, I suppose.
I have got no doubts in my mind that when we do a job, when we work, we're there to earn a living, feed our families, put clothes on our back, roof over our heads, etc. The sort of fundamental aspects of work. But when you work in a vocational field, which it sounds like that's maybe the direction that you're moving in, that there's no level of financial reward that will ever beat being able to help someone. And I think in the world of ADHD, people with ADHD love helping other people. And you're probably similar to me in that respect, that if you can play a small part in bringing joy or happiness or helping somebody along the way, the reward of that is just such an incentive to make you want to do more of it. And that's probably what's happened.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, I've never been someone that's been particularly financially driven. Obviously, I'd like more money. I think we all would. But I can get paid for something, and that's just kind of there. It's the number. It's what allows me to live my life, I suppose. It's probably, don't know if that's the right way of putting it, but you can kind of compare that to the feeling of getting an email from someone saying, I've done this and I've only been able to do this because of the help you gave me.
Yeah.
Like, that's just incredible. It's kind of mind-blowing, humbling, and I don't know. It's hard to describe.
But it also says another thing, that what you're able to give to people is of great value to them. And I always try and encourage people to capture that and remember that, because for me, it's a one-way journey. And if you're, making the contributions that you are in people's lives and it's making a difference, you're almost kind of compelled to do it more. And I think that's probably the stage that you're at, that you've got this gift, forgive me for saying, you've got this sort of personality, and you're engaging enough that people will want more of you, and it becomes more about you, the person. Your photography is important, but it's Rick that's delivering this, and I think that's what people are going to buy into.
Yeah, and I think I do struggle with that thought a little bit, because it all of a sudden feels a bit self-indulgent. Would that be the right way of putting it? I'm not sure. Like, it's got to be about me. Like you say, there's miles better photographers than me out there. People don't look at my stuff because of the photos I've taken. They are probably like a nice side dish, maybe, I suppose.
Yeah.
But like people have said in that video in the comments that they watch my videos because of the stuff I say, and I say the stuff I say because I am me. But I do wrestle with that a bit because it still feels a little bit uncomfortable to me, I suppose.
Yeah, I was quite similar about that with myself and in the field of healthcare and what I do. And I said a line to myself one day, and you might need to say it to yourself. I said to myself, Gordon, get over yourself. And once I'd done that, I thought, all right, fair enough. And I just fired.
Yeah.
Maybe that's.
I think potentially, because although it is me, it's not about me.
No. You're a conduit for people to help them get to where they want to go to, but a fairly decent one.
Thank you.
And with this coaching idea, is there something on the horizon that people can look forward to anticipate?
So it's one of these. I've got a lot of projects in mind. They're all at various stages. A lot of them have been mentioned in kind of videos and stuff. But the main thing I want to focus on is what is most helpful for people. And up until now, that is far and away, in terms of kind of changes to people on an individual basis, has been the coaching. And I'm kind of thinking about pushing that out in more of a group thing, and I've mentioned it before, so it's probably not news to anyone. It's and I'm building it out. I'm trying to work out how it will fit best. I've spent a long time thinking about it, but also kind of the launch window needs to fit in with when I'm in the country, out of the country, everything else. But that's basically going to be the kind of main priority, I think, for next year is some sort of group coaching where I can take people through a similar program to what I've done individually.
Yeah. Well, just a word of warning, Rick. I have no doubt whatsoever, if you announce such a program, be prepared, because numbers will be knocking down the door, undoubtedly. So that I will look out for that, and I will make people aware of that when I can. So thanks for meeting with me today. We've chatted on for quite a while, but it's been fascinating hearing about your journey up to this point, hearing about your world of photography, your life before that, some of the ups and downs along the way, this diagnostic process you've gone through and come out the other end of that. Almost feels like there's a kind of new chapter in your life and your career that's about to unfold. So that's quite exciting also. And I will put a link wherever down below is on this channel to your YouTube channel, because I'm pretty sure that even not just people who are interested in photography, people who are interested in neurodiversity will want to sort of hear more from you, what you've got to say moving forward. So thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's been good to kind of go through the journey. And I think if people are going to take anything away from it, it is that, like, stuff happens, but we can be resilient and we can move through it. And you've got to kind of keep that, I suppose, determination and hope that things can change. I mean, post-diagnosis, obviously, I understand a lot more about myself. I'm not under any illusions that things are going to be suddenly straightforward and easy. But I think just being able to work out how I can adapt my life, I suppose, to fit in with this now rather than fighting against it, I think that is probably going to be the biggest change that enables me to move forward with it, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, good stuff. We'll look forward to see how that unfolds moving forward.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me on.
Cheers, Rick. Bye for now.
Yes, bye.
So there you have it. That was Rick. I loved that conversation with him. I loved the way he described his journey from a young age when he first picked up the camera. He almost kind of inherited the passion from his dad, whom he sadly lost when he was young. And he maintained his interest and love of photography right into adulthood. Probably like many adults with ADHD, you try various courses along the way, not really sure if you're embarking on the right thing for you. And then what's always been a steady influence in his life and always been there for him is his love of photography. And he finally managed to find a way of introducing that into the workplace and discovered that he was actually quite good at that. And what I think also is really fascinating is the way that he has just self-taught. I think that is just brilliant. Pure ADHD are obviously different types of learners, very sort of visual learners. I think Rick's no different in that respect. So everything he has learned around photography, he's taught himself. And I think that's brilliant along the way. He's also at this point in life where he's not long been diagnosed with ADHD. And he's going through that process that many of you go through, where there's a bit of uncertainty. There's obviously a sense of relief that you finally know what it's about after maybe years of trying to discover what is the underlying problem here. So he's at that point where he's, I think, coming to terms with it, which I think is good. And I think he is someone who will go from strength to strength, particularly what he's hoping to offer people. He's already offered a lot for people up until now with his YouTube channel, and his style of delivery, I think, is really engaging for the world of neurodiversity. And I think it encourages other people who may be struggling with their mental health to engage in something that is, almost kind of therapeutic in its own right. So I'm really excited to see what Rick brings to the table in the months ahead with his, coaching ideas, and, keep an eye out for it. And I would probably sign up for it myself. Don't tell him though. I will put a link to Rick's YouTube channel down below and his website. Why don't you go and check him out? But that was Rick, and I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then I think it's at this point I say, please press the like button. And if you would like more of this content, then why don't you just subscribe? And I'll see you the next time. Alrighty, bye for now.